So you hear the term the cloud thrown around constantly, right? My photos are in the cloud, I'll save this to the cloud. But what is it really? It's one of those words we all use, but might not be able to pin down. Well, let's dive in and pull back the curtain on one of the most important technologies shaping our world today.
Okay, let's start with something we all do. Think about the last show you binge-watched on Netflix. When you hit that play button, where does that movie or TV episode actually come from? I mean, is it beamed down from a satellite, sent through a giant broadcast tower? Does it live inside your cable box? You might think you know, but the real answer is probably not what you're expecting.
Yep, you guessed it. It comes from the cloud. Every single movie, every episode, streamed on demand to millions and millions of people all at the same time, it's all powered by the cloud. It's like this invisible backbone holding up our entire digital life. But to really get what the cloud is, we've got to take a step back and look at what the world was like before it existed.
All right, so let's set the scene. Before the cloud came along, if you had an idea for an app or a website, you couldn't just launch it. You had to build everything yourself. And I don't just mean writing the code, I mean you had to physically build the infrastructure.
It's kind of wild to think about now, but you didn't just need software. You needed a whole room, a literal, physical space filled with racks of blinking, whirring servers that generated a ton of heat. This was the era of on-premise IT. The name says it all. The hardware was on your premises. And let me tell you, it came with a whole lot of headaches.
I mean, the problems were huge. First off, you had to spend a fortune up front just to buy all those servers. Then, you needed a team of IT specialists to keep them running 24/7. And don't forget, you needed a building to put them in. You had to pay for all the electricity, and you had to keep the room ice cold so they didn't overheat. But you know what the real killer was? Scalability. If your app suddenly went viral, you couldn't just snap your fingers and get more power. Nope. You had to order more machines, wait for them to arrive, install them, a process that could take weeks, even months. By then, your moment might have passed.
So with all these massive problems, it was clear the tech world needed a better way, a totally new model. And that solution, the big idea that changed everything, was cloud computing. It completely flipped the script on how we think about and access computing power.
So what is it exactly? Well, to put it simply, cloud computing means that instead of owning and managing your own computer servers and infrastructure, you rent them from somebody else, a big provider like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. The best analogy is electricity. You don't build your own power plant at home, right? Of course not. You just plug into the wall, use what you need, and pay the utility company for it. The cloud is the exact same idea, but for computing power.
And look, the cloud isn't just one single thing. It's this massive ecosystem of different services. You can rent a virtual computer, you can store unbelievable amounts of data, you can run super complex databases, or use powerful software, all on demand and all without ever having to buy or touch a single piece of physical hardware yourself. Now, you can get all this incredible stuff from the cloud, but it's not a one-size-fits-all deal. These services are usually bundled into a few different models, and which one you choose really depends on how much control you want and what you're trying to accomplish. It's kind of like a menu. Which brings us to a really important question. I mean, it's one thing to say you're using the cloud, but what does that actually look like? How do you do it? Well, the answer breaks down into three main categories, or service models. And here they are: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. You can think of them as layers in a pyramid. Each level gives you a different amount of control, and each one is built on top of the layer below it. Let's break down what these fancy acronyms IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS actually mean. Okay, let's start at the bottom of that pyramid with IaaS, or Infrastructure as a Service. This is the most fundamental level. It gives you the most control. Think of it as renting the raw ingredients: virtual servers, storage, networking. This is for the IT pros. Moving up, we've got PaaS, Platform as a Service. This layer is built for developers. It gives them a platform, the tools, the environment, to build and run their applications without having to worry about the underlying servers. And then at the very top, the layer we're all familiar with, is SaaS, Software as a Service. These are the finished products, the ready-to-use applications you access right from your web browser. Think Google Workspace, Netflix, Salesforce. Most of us live in the SaaS world every day.
Okay, almost there. There's just one last piece to this puzzle. We know what the cloud is and how we use it, but where does it live? I mean, where are all these millions of servers physically located? This is where we talk about different deployment models.
It really boils down to two main options.
First, you have the public cloud. This is what we've mostly been talking about, these enormous data centers owned by companies like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud. In a public cloud, you're sharing the infrastructure with lots of other customers or tenants, and that sharing is precisely what makes it so cheap and flexible. On the flip side, you have the private cloud. This is where the entire set of servers and infrastructure is dedicated to just one single organization. It's way more expensive, but it gives you maximum control and security. That's why you'll see it used by, say, big banks or government agencies that have super strict data rules.
So, we've covered the what, the how, and the where of cloud computing. But let's zoom out for a second and ask the most important question of all. So what? Why does any of this really matter? What has the cloud actually changed in the world? And the honest answer is, well, pretty much everything.
The benefits are just game-changing. You can really boil it down to a few key things. First, cost. Companies don't have to sink millions of dollars into hardware before they even write a line of code. They just pay for what they use. Second, speed and scale, what we call elasticity. You can grow from 10 users to 10 million overnight, almost instantly. And finally, there's flexibility and resilience. Your teams can work from anywhere, access anything, and your data is kept safe in multiple locations, so if one data center has a problem, you're still up and running. That level of agility was just a pipe dream in the old world.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, this isn't some niche tech thing. $137.3 billion. That's the projected market size just for cloud storage by 2025. That's not even the whole cloud. It just goes to show how fundamental the shift is. We have completely moved from a world of owning things to a world of renting access. And the economic impact is just staggering.
I mean, just stop and think about it for a second. The biggest innovations that define our lives today, streaming services, AI assistants like Siri and Alexa, the entire remote work revolution, all the smart devices in our homes, none of it would be possible without the cloud. It is truly the invisible but incredibly powerful foundation that everything else is built on.
So, you see, the cloud isn't some fluffy, abstract idea floating up in the sky. It's the complete opposite. It's the solid ground beneath our feet, the foundation for our entire digital future. It's already enabled so much incredible